There we go. Okay. Hi guys. Now that I'm audible. Um that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed both of those games. I enjoyed playing them for a second week. And I'm glad that that I did them the way that I did. Sort of um rather than like devoting an entire show, like 2 hour long segments or three, like whatever, 2 hours or however long to either one of those games. I think they both taste better in small measures, which is something that's super valid, and can be part of your design, part of your goal, and can sometimes be tricky to achieve. Um, it's especially hard to anticipate sometimes when a game is going to be like that. Um, and so I'm sort of glad that it worked out as well as it did this time around. Um, both of these were really well designed and interestingly designed games, and yeah, as I said, Titan Souls um, yeah, is a design and employs an aesthetic that I personally find hollow, and have a lot of difficulty engaging with emotionally. Um, and then on top of that, a difficulty level that I find somewhat inaccessible, and difficult to sort of sustain an engagement with. So I think fundamentally that's not a game that's for me. But I certainly appreciate how well put together it is, how smooth and how tight the controls are, and the play space that they explore with such elegant mechanics, really. So, yeah. Anyway, let's do some Q&A. I think that there's a bunch. So in Reigns, what's the difference between a quest and an achievement? At least, from my perspective, that's a super interesting question, and I think it's got a really straightforward answer for me. A quest is an objective or a set of objectives that is given to you by a character in the game, that is sort of narratively diegetic. An achievement is exactly the same kind of objective. It's functionally identical, but it is given to you by the game itself, and not by a character in the game. It is non-diegetic. Diegetic is a cinema term that you might understand if I tell you that when a character in a movie is listening to the radio on their car, that is diegetic music. And when there's a John Woo fight sequence in which music is playing, but the music is just part of the movie. It's not part of the world that the characters inhabit. That is non-diegetic. And to me, that's the difference between a quest and an achievement. One of them is from within the world of the game, and the other one isn't. But other than that, I mean, we have evolved to a place where we're familiar enough with achievements that they serve functionally much the same purpose. And they can even be presented in sort of similar ways. Yeah. Would Reigns be better with mimics? Eve, I assume that Reigns has mimics in it. That's why I didn't open the chest in the dungeon. Because I figured it was probably a mimic. Also because I didn't see what I had to gain from, like, opening chests in a strange dungeon. It had been made pretty clear to me, or at least I had made the assumption pretty hard, that there was no way for me to escape the dungeon. So, like, what am I going to do with treasure? But I thought that the risk outweighed the potential reward, that chest would just flat out eat me. TwitchCon is in Long Beach this year. Any chance you might actually come this time? And maybe we could have an End Defenders meetup. Yeah, I have to look at the date and, like, actually check my calendar. And there's a chance that, like, there's something unavoidable that will come up. But I'm definitely planning to come this year. So we should definitely have some kind of a meetup. I think that would be fun. It's usually in September, right? Or around that time. If somebody has the date, chat it at me. Otherwise, I'll look it up. But I think we've got some time before we have to figure out the logistics of that. But I will say that, yeah, that's something I'm planning on doing and looking forward to. So if anybody is at TwitchCon or in the SoCal area for that, then it'd be cool to see you. Have you seen any gameplay from the upcoming Legend of Zelda game? Bye, Martsy. If so, what are your thoughts on it? I saw the initial trailer from the Nintendo Switch event a couple of weeks ago. I'm kind of mad you didn't check. Okay, well, so it's okay. TwitchCon. It's actually less that there's something on my calendar now, and more that, like, something might come up that I can't avoid. But my plan is TwitchCon anyway. I don't have a lot to say on the new Zelda. The trailer looks super pretty. I mean, if I find myself in a position where it's convenient to play that game, I would not mind playing that game. But something has definitely happened for the Legend of Zelda series for me. And I don't know if it's that I've grown out of it, or I feel like it's trying to do too much. It has sort of become such a hodgepodge action-adventure game that it seems unfamiliar to me now. And in some ways, it seems like it is less distinguishable from all of the other, kind of sprawling open world action adventure games that are out there. I don't know that that's the wrong move for them to make. I think that that is one of their most successful franchises, and with every iteration it becomes more and more of a blockbuster proposition for them. And the way that blockbusters work, you spend an enormous amount of your finite resources developing and marketing your tentpole blockbuster titles, and you need them to pull in a commensurate amount of money. And the way that you do that typically is you can increase your revenue from a title by broadening the potential audience and increasing the marketing spend. So every time we get a new Zelda title, the marketing spend is bigger, and to go along with that, they try to make the game sort of more broadly appealing. I get that, and I think that the games are probably still fun and still magical, and that people like play them and love them. But I have felt less and less compulsion to play them, and the little bit that I played Skyward Sword, I just had less fun with. I think that I've skipped a couple of entries at this point and not sort of super missed them. The last one that I played that I thought had all of the charm and innovation and sort of clever design and atmosphere. None of the games have like really strong narratives, but yeah, charm, I guess. I thought that Phantom Hourglass was like super clever and super smart and super fun. I played a lot of the Wii one. What was that called? I don't know, the werewolf one. And there were parts of it that I liked, but it felt less like a Zelda game to me. It was, enjoyable, but I didn't finish it. And I sort of didn't regret not finishing it. And then I kind of stopped paying as much attention to the Legend of Zelda series. Anyway, all that's to say, the trailer looks super beautiful. It looks awesome. I don't find myself like enraptured by it at this point. And part of that is a hardware thing. Like, I'm not gonna rush out and get a Switch. I might get one eventually if it seems good. But it's been a while since I got like really hyped up about Nintendo hardware. Yeah. Twilight Princess is the name of the game that I couldn't remember. Thank you. Thank you, Eve. Having played several Zelda-related games, specifically thinking of hack and slash, what do you think makes references work best? Like in an epigraphic way versus a feeling or copying or derivativeness or what have you? I'm thinking about this pretty hard because I don't know that I agree that it's appropriate to sort of I'm reading a sort of a negative implication into the idea of copying or making derivative work that maybe you didn't intend, Jason, but as I'm reading this question, I sort of disagree with that sentiment. I don't know that it's necessarily negative or wrong to make a game that is derivative of another game. I think that there's a problem in our industry with cloning, with sort of creating games that are that don't have original value. But I think that actually the range for me in which cloning is a serious problem is very narrow. Like if you get just a step or two away from the original game, I think sort of you lose all of that that bad vibe around copying the game, and I think part of the reason for that for me is that games typically, and video games especially, in almost all cases, are such intricate systems of interacting elements, where if you make even small changes to the way that parts of a game function, those small changes echo through the design of the game in ways that get magnified, amplified dramatically, and have a sort of much larger effect than the changes themselves would suggest, and frequently necessitate further changes to entirely other parts of the game in order to maintain a cohesive or coherent or engaging experience. So in my experience and in my perspective, you can't venture very far from a progenitor game design before you have to create something that, if it is to stand on its own merits, has to stand on its own merits. If it's going to stand up, has to stand on its own merits, and is either going to be a failure as a game and just a dim reflection of the thing that you're copying, or it is actually going to have its own beating heart, its own soul, its own self, sense of self. There's sort of no way to avoid that. So I think that said, what makes references work best? I think there's actually maybe more of an art to maintaining any kind of a recognizable connection to the game that you are coming from, and still having a level of quality that is, your players are going to recognize. Yeah, so in some of these, I guess when it comes to like what makes the reference work best is that it's more than just sort of a wink at the audience. So in Hack and Slash, for example, like some of what they did I thought worked okay, and some of it wasn't fantastic. And like the fact that you have a fairy companion and you wear a green hat, like none of that reference to Legend of Zelda is especially compelling. It feels especially meaningful. That game is sort of building on hoping to establish an expectation of the kind of world and the kind of game that it is going to be. But honestly, I feel like it doesn't, like it subverts that expectation deliberately in some ways, but it also kind of fails to deliver on those promises in other ways, in terms of the way that the world is constructed and the way that enemies look and behave, I feel like those are things that actually could have been worked to be closer to the feeling of some of those older classic Legend of Zelda games. And instead, they sort of took them in a different direction that I think was convenient for their art style and for their mechanics. Which, you know, obviously those things are important and they're going to heavily influence the decisions that you make. But I think that game maybe had a missed opportunity around sticking to its guns a little bit more in terms of upholding those references. Titan Souls, I think, does a really, really good job of you know, not I guess aesthetically in some of the world design and some of the sort of 16-bitness of the game is reminiscent of specifically Link to the Past. But in terms of like the character, the mechanics, it's actually, you know, quite different. You do not by any stretch look like Link in Titan Souls. The way that you move through the world, the way that you fight, are also, I mean, they're pretty distinct. They're pretty dramatically different from the standards of how world traversal and exploration and combat work in the game that it is obviously referencing, but they're spiritually closer. They have a more similar experience of playing that game. Feels more like playing Link to the Past. There's a connection that runs deeper than just a narrative reference or a visual reference or some kind of reference in the dramatic elements of the game. There's something experiential that is consistent, that carries over from one of those play experiences to the other. And that, to me, is something that is harder to do and that I appreciate when I see it. Do we get a show and tell? Yeah. I'm going to do some more questions, and then we'll do some kind of show and tell. Then there's some discussion about if we're going to keep doing double features, which I don't know. Double features, actually, now I feel like that's an arrow in my quiver. That's something that, depending on the games, I like might be appropriate to pull out, but it's not something that I'm going to do every week, or like most weeks, I think. But if we're going to do double features, would love a Q&A in between the games rather than just after. It was pointed out, I saw in the chat, that if we did a Q&A in between the games, we would probably never get to the second game, which I think is probably true. And it would be, it'd be harder to do like 2 Q&As. Would just be logistically more difficult. We could try something. I tried something for a show or two a little while back where we did like a single question or a brief Q&A between segments of the show, and it didn't work great, but some of that might have been the execution of it, which was a little haphazard. You know, I didn't really know what I was doing. So if the next time we do a double feature, maybe we'll try to do something like that. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. It's not. I don't know that it's trivial, but okay. You've compared, but the other thing that I will say is that, for what it's worth, Eve and Thano tend to be really good at harvesting questions. So if you have questions about the first game in the midst of the first game, you can ask them then, and my beautiful, charming, diplomatic, tall, beautiful mods will grab those questions and send them to me so that they can be part of the Q&A for whatever that's worth. Okay, you've compared Titan Souls to Hotline Miami. Yeah. How would you compare it to Super Hot, another game with frequent death mechanic? And I also compared it to Super Meat Boy. I mean, I think that all three of those games sort of approach that frequent death mechanic in similar ways, where where they all try to minimize the friction that comes with death. And this game doesn't. I mean, I think that's really where it falls. I think that this game has, for that reason, it comes across, I really like the word that I used last week, it comes across as unforgiving. I mean, I think that decision interacts with a lot of other decisions that are, that sort of form the game, and the experience of Titan Souls is very different from the experience of Super Hot. Not least because, I mean, the fun thing actually in a comparison of Titan Souls and Super Hot is that Super Hot presents as a Twitch action game, but is actually a puzzle game. And Titan Souls presents as sort of a puzzle game, but is actually a Twitch action game, like really fundamentally. I mean, they both occupy very similar sort of spaces in terms of the kind of player that they're attractive to and the way that they attract the player. So I guess saying that said, why am I like a million times into Super Hot and like pretty tepid cold on Titan Souls? And I think it's probably because Super Hot is actually a puzzle game and not a twitchy action game, and Titan Souls is. And Super Hot has a like cool, weird, cyberpunk, matrixy, like ARG-like meta story, and Titan Souls has a atmospheric, sort of minimalistly narrative, not nonsensical, but like, hollow of meaning is what I want to say. Sort of reflection of Shadow of the Colossus, as its sort of, unifying and motivating story. And one of those I find way more compelling than the other. Vincier StarCraft. Okay, so Vincier StarCraft last week pitched a game that they're developing, and then didn't wasn't still in the chat during the Q&A, and so sort of didn't get more information from them, and then sent me a tweet that I saw but didn't have a chance to respond to. Here's the elevator pitch to the game, which occasionally you might be able to get your elevator pitch on play-by-play if you send it to me during the Q&A. Elevator pitch for the game was Victorum is an action RPG where you play as a powerful mage that can dynamically shape spells, and you go on your path of vengeance via node-based exploration map in a sort of FTL style. Vincier, I think that you can work on that elevator pitch. I think that you can make that much better, and I would encourage you to workshop it and play with that and play it for some other people and get reactions to it. I'll just tell you sort of, so this is fun for me because this is a class that I'm teaching this semester, is finishing and polishing and publishing class, and a lot of what we're doing is taking games that students have already made and figuring out, what is the pitch for this game, what's the audience, what's the vector, how do we finish it and put it out into the world? How do we launch it? So we talk a lot about elevator pitches, and the elevator pitch, powerful mage is the premise of so many video games, and not just a quantity of video games, but so many sort of incredibly bland video games that it doesn't do anything for you as part of your elevator pitch. And the part of your game that is certainly potentially a hook, which is destructible environments on a massive scale, kind of gets buried in here, right? You're dynamically shaping something about spells. This is not exactly the same as the elevator pitch that you sent me on Twitter, but it's similar, and similarly, I feel like that pitch doesn't exploit the hook of your game. Which I'll look for it. I'll find it on Twitter and retweet it. But there's a GIF in the tweet that Vincier sent me that is that's basically like a giant land-worked bridge that is destroyed as part of the side effect of like the character's magic, and it's a very short clip, and it's hard to get a sense of like how the whole game plays. But it is, in terms of like pitching something, it's a very compelling visual, because you see this sort of like really big, massive part of the environment that just like crumbles. So that I think is very cool. I'm also kind of intrigued by the FTL style map because it suggests to me an abstraction of gameplay and a focus on narrative that is, at the very least, a different approach to that kind of, action adventure or action RPG game than I've seen before. So anyway, bottom line is it looks interesting. If you send me the game or a link, I forget if there was I don't remember there being a link in the tweet that you sent me. If you send me a link, then I'll try to find a minute to try it out. I don't know. I can't guarantee that it'll be on a play-by-play, but if I have a chance to try it and give you some feedback, I'd be happy to do that. And I'll also retweet it because your GIF was pretty cool. So if you want other people to play it, make sure you tweet me a link, like a little packaged tweet that I can retweet, that other people would find compelling and useful, if you want me to do that. Okay. Also, apparently, Astroneer. I'm trying to remember. I think that Jay LeClanche has mentioned Astroneer to me a couple of times. But I'm trying to remember what the game actually looks like. It hasn't left much of an impression on me. But yes, I will check that out. I'll look at that. That sounds like an intriguing sort of potentially rich vein to mine for a show. Ooh, God, Eve, that's a good question. No, I have a couple minutes. Okay. What general advice would you give to someone attending GDC for the first time? So this is Eve is attending GDC for the first time. But if there's anybody else out there who is planning to attend GDC, or frankly any other event like that, so, oh man, GDC is an interesting beast. It's there's sort of two parallel worlds. There's the conference, which has like a complicated pricing and access structure, where you can get into some talks and not get into other talks depending on the pass that you have, and blah blah blah. The talks are a mixed bag. A lot of them are fantastic. If you have the opportunity to get into any of the talks, look through the catalog of speakers, and there's really, really good stuff in there that you can sort of pick out, and there's a lot of stuff that you'll sort of recognize because it's something that you're generally interested in, or you're technically interested in. There's a lot of so in the last few years, my habit has been to attend either the Indie Summit or the Summits and Workshops, which is the first two. It's Monday and Tuesday of the sort of full week of GDC, and there are some specific tracks. One of them is indie games, which is sort of ridiculously vague. And then there's like an audio track and a games education track and a I think there's an AI track, I'm pretty sure. There's like I don't know. I forget what all of the summits are, but there's a bunch of summits. And then on Wednesday and Thursday is the main conference, and there are a whole bunch more talks that are in different tracks, and a lot of those are also really good, but that's way more expensive to get. So, think about the kinds of things that you're interested in generally. Think about the games that you are interested in specifically, and look for people who are talking about, those things. Don't be afraid to have holes in your schedule. So it may be tempting, if you have a pass that allows you to get into talks, to just try to figure out what is the thing that I should be going to see at every hour of every day. And you don't need to do that. pick the ones that you think are that you really want to see, and go to those. And then if there are hours where there's nothing that you're especially excited about, and there's something that you could go to and probably be fine, don't be afraid to take that time off. The parallel world that is in San Francisco during the week of GDC is one that's entirely social. And it is based on the fact that there are just so many people of similar interest who, are game developers, who are in some capacity, who are all fans of games, who all are passionate about games, and there's such a concentration of them that it is much easier than in the sort of real world to sit down and start a conversation with somebody. Just because there's so many people, and they're all kind of at least passively looking for the same thing. They're all interested in making connections. They're all you have a shared experience and a shared sort of interest that is very easy to access. So really, don't be afraid to take time off of the conference to just take a break, but also don't be afraid to take time off of the conference to network, and think about it as networking, and try not to get stressed out about that term and what it suggests. Networking is not hard. It's just the professional version of being friendly and meeting people. Literally, that's all it is. And for introverts like me, that is a stressful prospect. That's not trivial, but it is also not insurmountable. This is an environment where it is as easy as it can be to meet people and to sort of be professionally friendly with them. And sometimes that leads to something. Generally, it doesn't, and that's fine. My experience with GDC is that occasionally I will make a connection that is professionally meaningful, or in some other way has a long-term significance to me, but that's pretty rare, and is not necessarily an expected outcome. The expected outcome of GDC for me is to leave with a renewed sense of community, and especially a recharged inspiration for making games, and it helps to get in touch with the joy of being a part of this industry. It helps remind me, why I like to do what I'm doing, and why I care about this. Which is especially important for me as a game designer and as a teacher. That passion, that inspiration is something that I take into my work very directly. And so I find that super useful. And then, similarly, I will every year learn at least a couple of things that are useful to me from a design perspective or a technical perspective. And every year I'll meet a couple of people who are interesting and particularly inspirational. And occasionally I'll meet somebody that